The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Building a business when there are no easy answers. What's this book about? This book explains why being a CEO is one of the toughest and loneliest jobs in the world, and how to handle the stress and challenges. About the author. Ben Horowitz is a founding partner at the venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz. He co-founded and led Opsware, an IT company that sold to Hewlett-Packard in 2007 for $1.6 billion. His blog has over 10 million readers. What will I learn? Learn how to become a great CEO. Being a CEO is very lonely and hard. CEOs have full responsibility for their company's success and must make tough decisions every day. They might have to fire friends or close a factory, all while planning for the future. In these sparks, you'll learn lessons from Ben Horowitz's experience as a CEO and selling his company for $1.6 billion. You'll discover how to fire people with minimal bad feelings and why hiring someone with a few weaknesses can be beneficial. Lastly, you'll find out what it takes to be a wartime CEO. Spark 1. The struggle of being a CEO. Being the CEO of a company is one of the toughest and loneliest jobs in the world. Every CEO starts out with big dreams of building something amazing, changing the world, and making a lot of money. But the reality is much harder. No company ever grows smoothly without problems. There are always crises and challenges, both big and small. The economy might crash and scare away investors. You might hire the wrong person for an important job. Your best customer could suddenly go bankrupt. When these problems hit, CEOs face what Ben Horowitz calls the struggle. This is when your dreams meet harsh reality. The struggle is all the stress and impossible decisions that come with being in charge. It affects every part of your life, your mental health, your physical health, your relationships, and your career choices. The struggle is extremely draining, but it's also where greatness comes from. As the CEO, you're responsible for dealing with all the company's challenges. You'll get credit when things go well, but you'll also be blamed and maybe fired if things go badly. Spark 2. How to deal with the struggle. The struggle can feel unbearable at times, but there are ways to deal with it. First, don't try to handle everything alone. When there's a crisis, involve as many people as you can. For example, when Horowitz's company Opsware was in trouble after the dot-com crash, he gathered the whole company together. He told them honestly that unless they completely changed their product, the company would fail. He said anyone who wanted to quit should do it now. The people who stayed were so determined to succeed that the company survived and thrived. Second, when you feel trapped, get creative. During the dot-com boom, Horowitz's company LoudCloud was $2 million short of its $75 million revenue target. Investors were getting nervous. Horowitz felt stuck, so he did something unexpected. He took the company public to raise the money they needed. Third, focus on solutions, not problems. It's like being a race car driver. You have to keep your eyes on the road ahead, not on the walls you might crash into. As a CEO, you need to look for ways forward instead of dwelling on all the problems around you. Spark 3. Be honest about bad news. No one likes giving bad news. But when you're the CEO and your company is having problems, it's crucial to discuss them openly with your employees. Bad news spreads quickly anyway, so there's no point trying to hide it. In fact, keeping secrets can be very damaging. It makes the bad news a surprise when people find out, which can hurt trust and morale. Employees might think they could have helped fix the problems if they'd known about them earlier. Instead of keeping quiet, CEOs should share bad news as soon as possible. This stops rumors and allows the whole organization to focus on fixing the problem. The sooner everyone knows about an issue, the sooner it can be solved. For example, imagine a company is in trouble because of a big change in technology. If the CEO tries to figure everything out alone, it will take a long time. But if she talks to her staff, they can explore the new technology quickly. Engineers can look at technical issues, accountants can calculate costs, and so on. Many CEOs don't like sharing bad news because they think employees can't handle the truth. But actually, employees often handle bad news better than the CEO, because the CEO always feels responsible for any problems. The simple truth is this: by sharing problems quickly, you put those problems in the hands of people who can solve them fast. Spark 4. How to handle layoffs. One of the hardest tasks for any CEO is laying people off. But sometimes it's necessary, and how you handle it has a big impact on the company. First, when layoffs are needed, act fast. As soon as the decision is made, you need to take action. Delaying layoffs that everyone knows are coming is like letting a wound get infected. If you don't announce the layoffs right away, people will hear rumors anyway. They'll wonder if their jobs are safe. If you've told managers to keep it secret, they'll have to lie to their team, which damages trust. Or if you haven't even told the managers, they'll look uninformed. Second, be fair to the people leaving. Give them good severance packages and good references. This helps the morale of people who stay and makes it easier to hire in the future. It's also simply the right thing to do. When explaining the layoffs, CEOs should be clear that they're necessary because the company failed its employees. This has two benefits. 1. It builds trust between the remaining employees and the CEO. 2. It helps everyone understand that the company failed and now needs to move forward. For example, if you need to lay people off because the company didn't reach its goals, don't say you're correcting underperformance. Instead, explain that because the company failed to hit its targets, some excellent people unfortunately have to be let go. Spark 5. Firing executives. Sometimes CEOs also have to fire executives. This is even harder than regular layoffs because there's more at stake for the company financially and culturally. So how should you fire an executive? First, understand that as the CEO, you're responsible for hiring the wrong person in the first place. You need to explain this to the board. Figure out why you made the hiring mistake and how to avoid it in the future. You could do a root cause analysis and share the results with the board. This will increase trust between you and the board members. Second, prepare carefully for the conversation with the executive. Think about what language you'll use and what severance package you'll offer. Remember, this isn't a discussion about performance, it's an ending. Don't humiliate the person. As famous CEO Bill Campbell said, you cannot let him keep his job, but you absolutely can let him keep his respect. Treating the outgoing executive fairly helps the morale and performance of the whole executive team. Think about it. If you publicly criticize the person leaving, those who stay will worry they might get the same treatment someday. The main goal in any executive firing is to keep the business running smoothly despite the departure. As CEO, you might need to temporarily take over the executive's duties to make this happen. Spark 6. Taking care of your people. Many companies say people are important to them, but not all truly understand that a great organization can only be built by taking good care of its people. Your people are more important than your products or your profits. So how can you take better care of your people? First, make sure you have a strong human resources, HR, department. HR can give you valuable information about problems in your company that you might not see. They're like the quality control department for organizations. They can't build the organization themselves, but they're good at pointing out when standards are slipping. For example, if your company's pay isn't competitive, you might not know until a job candidate mentions it to HR. Then you can fix the problem. Second, invest in training your staff to fit their roles better. This is absolutely essential. Every company has its own procedures and tools, and you can't assume new people will learn them without training. This training should be practical, giving employees the experience and skills they need to succeed in their jobs and meet their goals. Once individuals have the tools they need to succeed, you should also provide management training to your leadership team. Here, you tell managers how you expect them to train their staff and what kind of feedback they should give. These two factors, a quality HR organization and plenty of training, are the foundations of taking good care of your staff. Spark 7. How to hire the right people. Hiring the right people is crucial for any company. So how can you do it well? When recruiting, focus on hiring people for their strengths, not rejecting them for their weaknesses. After all, it's the strengths that will help the person excel at the job. For example, when Horowitz was looking for someone to run his sales organization, his top candidate was Mark Cranny. Cranny had all the skills and strengths needed to be an outstanding sales manager, but he was considered a poor cultural fit because he made people around him uncomfortable. Nevertheless, Horowitz hired Cranny because he had all the necessary strengths. In fact, without those few flaws, Cranny probably would have been hired by another company long ago and not been available. Another key thing to remember when hiring executives is to make sure their experience matches the size of your company. An executive's role in a small company is very different from their role in a big one. In large companies, executives often have a lot of work coming to them, and they need to adjust and review existing projects. In small companies, executives are expected to create their own projects and drive their own work. These differences can lead to mismatches in rhythm, the expected work pace, and skill set. For example, an executive coming from a large company to a small one might expect the same hectic pace as before and be surprised when they don't have new tasks and projects landing on their desk every day. On the other hand, an executive from a smaller company might struggle with the complexity and scale of a larger company. You should try to avoid these mismatches when hiring. Spark 8. Building a good company culture. Every CEO and founder wants their company to be a place where people are happy to work. So how can you make this happen? First, it's important to reduce corporate politics, The maneuvering that some people do to get undeserved promotions, for example. The best way to avoid such politics is to only hire people who are ambitious for the entire company, not just their own careers. Especially at the executive level, everyone must be fully focused on the company's success. Another way to avoid corporate politics is to create strict processes for regular performance evaluations, pay scales, and promotion schedules. These fixed timelines and processes make it harder for anyone to get an undeserved promotion. Second, you can make your company a pleasant place to work by creating a culture that sets you apart from competitors. For example, Amazon wanted to show that it would do everything possible to save customers money, so it had its employees work at desks made from old doors. Finally, communicate clearly to all employees what their role is and how their work is valued. This means having a clear hierarchy of job titles, so that terms like vice president and manager actually mean something. This hierarchy helps people understand how valuable their work is and how much money they should be earning with that title. However, when valuing work based on titles, be careful to avoid the law of crappy people. This law states that the most incompetent person who holds a given title determines the value of that title in general. For example, if your company has 3 senior marketing managers, people tend to look at the worst performing one and then extend that poor valuation to the other 2 as well. This leads to the other title holders feeling undervalued and demotivated. Spark 9. What makes a great CEO? The biographies of successful CEOs are popular for a reason. It's a highly demanding role to fulfill. So what makes a great CEO? Simply put, great CEOs can do 2 things. First, they find the right direction for the company to follow. For example, when Horowitz's company Opsware saw its stock price fall to 35 cents per share, the Nasdaq Stock Exchange told him he had to get the price back above $1 in less than 90 days, or the company's stock would be relegated to trading with the disparaged penny stocks. Horowitz eventually convinced an investor to back the company and saved Opsware, but it turned out that the investor was only convinced by Horowitz's sheer determination to lead the company in the right direction. Second, once a CEO has found the right direction, they have to communicate that direction and then get the rest of the company to follow. This ability has 3 key aspects. 1. Articulating the vision. No one was better at this than Steve Jobs. Even when Apple was just a month away from bankruptcy, he still managed to paint such a compelling future that his employees followed him. 2. Being authentic and motivational. Bill Campbell, who has been the CEO of multiple companies, is so compassionate, motivational, and authentic in his communications that all of his employees felt that the company belonged to them too and they were invested in its success. 3. Getting the company to execute on the vision. Andy Grove, the CEO of Intel, led the company into the field of microprocessing despite the steep costs involved. His decisiveness and conviction drove the company forward and into their powerful position today. Spark 10. 2 types of CEOs, decision makers and implementers. No 2 great leaders are exactly alike. However, it's possible to broadly categorize them based on their approach to leadership as either 1s or 2s. 1s are leaders who focus more on defining a path for the organization to follow than on implementing it. Typically, founding CEOs are 1s. A classic example is Bill Gates, who defined a compelling long-term vision for Microsoft. 1s enjoy researching and making important strategic decisions. They love the intricate strategic game of chess that they play against their competitors. What they don't enjoy as much is the actual execution, training, performance management, process design, goal setting, and so forth. Sometimes this means that organizations run by 1s become disorganized and chaotic. 2s, on the other hand, actually prefer the execution and performance management aspect of leadership over research and planning. They don't like to make big decisions, for example, regarding major strategic shifts. Sometimes this results in organizations that waver when it comes to important decisions, and this can slow them down. Of course, truly great CEOs combine the characteristics of both 1s and 2s. This combination is achieved by functional 1s. Functional 1s are like 2s in the sense that when it comes to the overall corporate direction, they like to focus on execution rather than on planning the company's path forward. But when it comes to their own particular area of responsibility and expertise, they act as planners, meaning as 1s. For example, the head of sales in a company may be a 1 in the sense that she enjoys making major decisions relating to sales, but when it comes to the overall plan on a corporate level, she prefers to focus on execution, leaving the major decisions to others. The implication of this is that no matter whether you're a 1 or a 2, you need to continue working on skills that lie outside your comfort zone to arrive at the perfect combination. Spark 11. Peacetime CEOs versus wartime CEOs. Many management books are written by CEOs and business leaders. The problem is that most of these books relate to businesses where the direction to pursue is relatively clear and the business is focused on capturing market share from competitors. But many businesses find themselves in much more dire straits. The circumstances the company faces largely dictate the kind of management approach required. This means a company may need a peacetime CEO or a wartime CEO. A peaceful era can be identified by the fact that the company already has an advantage over competitors in its target market. Typically, the market will also be growing, so the CEO simply focuses on enhancing this advantage further. A good example of a peacetime strategy is the way Google is trying to provide people with faster internet service. Google's cloud services are already popular, and faster internet connections will make them even more so. Peacetime CEOs often encourage creativity among their employees. One famous example is Google's policy of allowing employees to spend 20% of their time on independent projects, some of which then go on to become successful Google products. In wartime, on the other hand, the game changes completely. Macroeconomic shifts, new competitor threats, changes in the technology landscape, and so forth can threaten the very survival of the company. This means the wartime CEO carries a huge responsibility. The company lives or dies by her decisions. For example, consider Andy Grove, who was the CEO of Intel in the 1980s, when over 80% of his company's staff were devoted to producing memory products. The company came under attack by Japanese semiconductor companies with superior products. So Grove made the tough decision to change the company's direction and go into microprocessing instead. This choice was later seen as hugely successful. Spark 12. Learning to be a great CEO. CEOs are often seen as mysterious creatures. When company boards or venture capitalists try to evaluate the quality of a CEO, they're often at a loss. They may wonder, for example, whether great CEOs are born or whether someone can grow into the role. The truth is that CEOs grow into the job. To lead a company, they must develop the right characteristics and skills for that particular job. This means it's almost impossible to tell if a CEO will be successful beforehand. Great CEOs do tend to exhibit certain general traits, though, which you should try to emulate. 1. Be authentic. Always strive to stay true to your own personality and unique style. For example, Horowitz likes to use profanities when communicating with employees, so he implemented a policy in his company stating that profanities are okay as long as they are not used to intimidate or harass others. 2. Give good feedback. A good guideline is the shit sandwich. The most difficult or unpleasant topic is sandwiched between two more positive comments. Note, though, that higher-level executives may find this approach too rehearsed and insincere, so it works better with junior employees. 3. Get comfortable with discomfort. Most importantly, great CEOs must learn to be comfortable doing inherently uncomfortable things. Just as boxers train themselves for initially unnatural-feeling footwork, great CEOs have to make their unnatural job feel natural. For example, evaluating someone else's performance can be uncomfortable, especially if you have little personal experience in the field where the person operates. But this is an essential part of running a company, so a great CEO has no choice but to get used to it. Spark 13. Deciding whether to sell your company. Many entrepreneurs dream of one day selling their company and retiring. But when they finally receive an offer, they often waver, because by that time they feel deeply connected to the living, breathing entity they've created. So how do you know if you should sell your company? First, you need to understand that in the technology industry, 3 kinds of acquisitions occur. 1. Talent/technology acquisitions. These are meant to acquire the talent and/or technology of the target company. They usually cost around $5 to $50 million. 2. Product acquisitions. These are driven by a desire to acquire the target company's products, which the acquirer then wants to sell, usually more or less as is. These acquisitions usually cost around $25 to $250 million. 3. Business acquisitions. These are huge deals where the acquirer wants everything, the entire organization. An example of this kind of acquisition would be Horowitz's sale of his company Opsware to Hewlett-Packard for $1.65 billion in 2007. In the end, every kind of acquisition will be difficult to deal with emotionally and challenging to justify rationally. Emotionally, you'll likely be torn not only because you'll feel like you're selling out your dream, but also because you're walking away from your steady source of income. Don't let these emotions cloud your decision-making. Clearly communicate to all your stakeholders from the beginning the goals and expectations for the company, so no one feels like you're selling out. Also, ensure that you as the CEO receive a competitive salary in your company, as that way the possible decision to sell won't be influenced by your personal finances. From a rational perspective, you will wonder whether selling is the right choice. This always depends on the situation, But in general, the rule of thumb is that you should not sell if you have an early mover advantage in a big market that you think you will lead. This is difficult to estimate, however, and demands an honest appraisal. When considering an offer, ask yourself these questions. 1. Is this the best possible outcome for the company? 2. Is this the best possible outcome for the employees? 3. Is this the best possible outcome for the shareholders? If you can answer yes to all three, then selling might be the right decision. However, if you believe your company has the potential to grow much larger and more valuable in the future, you might want to hold off on selling. Remember, there's no shame in building a successful company and then selling it. Many great entrepreneurs have done this multiple times. The key is to make the decision based on what's best for the company, its employees, and its shareholders, not just on your personal feelings or financial situation. If you do decide to sell, be prepared for a long and complex process. Acquisitions can take months to complete and involve extensive due diligence, negotiations, and legal work. Stay focused on running your company during this time. A drop in performance could jeopardize the deal. Finally, if the sale goes through, be prepared for the emotional impact. Many entrepreneurs feel a sense of loss or uncertainty after selling their company. Have a plan for what you want to do next, whether that's starting a new venture, investing in other companies, or taking some time off. In conclusion, selling your company is a major decision that shouldn't be taken lightly. It requires careful consideration of both emotional and rational factors. By understanding the types of acquisitions, preparing yourself emotionally, and objectively evaluating the opportunity, you can make the best decision for yourself, your company, and all stakeholders involved. Thanks for watching. If you like our work, please like, share, and subscribe. It will motivate us to create more such inspiring content, and you will be notified when we upload new content. Till the next video, stay curious and stay happy.